I'm here as ever with my friend Richard. Hello, Richard.
And it's good to be back.
Do you know, I'm still struggling. Are you Dr. Richard Scott? Do I call you Richard? My mate Richard? I don't, I just, I know
I quite
you.
like I quite like my mate Richard. That'll do nicely.
I thought so. It's apt. It's accurate. It's
Sounds
true.
like MMR. Sounds like the measles, mumps, and rubella. There we go. MMR. My mate Richard.
Which saved lives. So that means we're awesome.
We'll stick to it.
Let's go with that. Right, we have two questions. Let's start with an anonymous one for you. Is breakfast really the most important meal of the day?
I'll be honest. So my wife tells me, and I always say to her, "Where's the evidence for that?" I can't see why logically. I really can't. Now, I'll be honest. I haven't bothered to look it up. Maybe I should have done when I had this problem to me several times. But I just can't see why. Why should it be?
Oh, well, since I've been on medication for my heart, I don't eat breakfast because I just don't want to. Because my heart's beating slower, I guess. I don't want breakfast. And my first meal usually is a very late brunch. That's the first time I want to eat, and I'm still fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see why. But not everything, as we've discovered when we've done these medical programs, not everything is completely logical.
No.
So logic tells me, why is it more important than lunch or dinner? Maybe there's something the researchers have found. Maybe I should look it up.
There was an old phrase, wasn't it? Breakfast like a king, lunch like a lord, and supper like a pauper.
A pie like a pauper. Yeah. Yes. But again, why? I don't know.
It's that why
I guess
question.
maybe it's that particularly when people had heavy jobs, you needed to have a decent breakfast to be able to do your job. Nowadays, most of us haven't got heavy jobs. I'm not speaking for everybody, but those of us with sedentary jobs, you barely need breakfast, to be honest. I certainly need lunch.
Well, yeah, but see, when I was driving trucks, which was very hard, some of the jobs were particularly manually invasive ones, intensive ones. I didn't want breakfast too early in the morning because I'd feel sick. 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, your body doesn't want breakfast at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Sure, agreed.
It wants sleep, not food. Just saying.
Well, I'll hold my hand up. I haven't done. I can't see why.
You don't want to start doing them. Right. Now, the next question for you. I read an article recently, says Peter, about simple ways to boost brain health. Apparently, chewing gum, walking backwards, and humming all help the brain. Is this true?
That would be reasonable because chewing gum helps concentration, and concentration is good for your brain. So I think that's fair. Walking backwards, boy, do you need to concentrate. Whenever you take your brain out of a comfortable situation and if you like stress it, and walking backwards is a stress. Try running backwards in a straight line, not just falling over. What was the third one?
The other one, humming.
Singing. We looked at the benefits of singing. Yeah. But I guess humming is a gentle form of singing. So yes, I think they're all reasonable.
Hey, I just made me think of something. I got very annoyed at hospital one time when I was going in for surgery, and one of the questions they ask is, "Have you had any falls?" And I jokingly said, "Oh yes, I was at a camping shop. Somebody pushed me backwards. I fell over a guy rope. Does that count?" "Oh yes," she said. "That's very important." At which point I said, "Hang on a minute. No, I was joking. Yes, I fell, but I wasn't actually falling so much as gravity, string, and an idiot."
That's someone who's just ticking boxes rather than understanding the situation.
Yes. Did you bang your head? No, because I'm not an idiot. So I knew how to roll and I was fine. Oh, that's definitely a fall. I really don't think that classifies as, do I have a fall risk?
Yes. But looking back, I think you should have said no.
I really wish I hadn't been humorous at that moment. My humor occasionally, which will be a shock, does get me into a little bit of bother when I'm joking, perhaps at times when maybe I shouldn't.
But it's more fun that way.
It's a lot more fun, as Steve Legg would say to us. Right. Let's move on to the topic of the week. What have you got for us this week?
Well, I'd like to bring something fresh, as listeners know, and sometimes unusual, often with a medical slant, and always I hope to make people think. So I want to tell people what's happened more recently in my life, and actually in one of the congregation's life. So 2.5 weeks ago, there's a Ugandan lady in our fellowship, Hope Christian Fellowship in Margate, and she's a good singer, and she led worship on the Sunday. Next day, she's dropping her husband to work in Margate, then drives to Dover and is involved in a head-on road traffic accident. Bad injuries, thank goodness her airbag worked, but abdo injuries and a friend's child in the back, even worse than your own child, a friend's child in the back was taken to King's College Hospital, London, which is always a bad sign. So, amongst other elders, we heard about it late afternoon, called into the hospital. We all arrive. As we arrive in theatre, she's arrive in the hospital. She's already in theatre, having an exploratory laparotomy, and her husband's been warned this is life-threatening. Her mum, unfortunately, happened to be staying from elsewhere in the north of England, and the father of the child, so their friend, was also with us. The mother was at King's College Hospital. So there we were, a group of us. We moved straight from the entrance to the hospital to the chapel, and we prayed and sung for about 90 minutes. We're looking for a good result, Lord, complete healing, surgical skill, anaesthetic to go well, and please also let the child be okay. So absolute emergency, quite unexpected. I remember I've just been sitting down to watch a sort of rerun of the Lions rugby. 10 minutes into the game, I get the phone call. We're going to hospital now. Fine, off we go. So I'm delighted to say that the bowel perforation was dealt with. She was on ITU for several days, then the main ward, and was discharged. And on Saturday, just gone, her husband rang me up asking me permission for her to attend church. So I said, well, it's relatively early, but how is she? Oh, well, she's in some pain. Yeah, she will be, but she's recovering well. Can she walk? Yes. Can she move? Yeah, moderately. Okay, sounds reasonable. I've been in that situation, having had a few operations myself. Okay, she can come to church. Make sure she takes it easy. So, of course, she doesn't. Halfway through the service, she stands up from the back, walks to the front, grabs the microphone, and starts leading worship in a different direction, which is fine. We're open to the Spirit. Then she gives thanks publicly to the Lord for, her healing. Good stuff, proper live testimony. And I gather she wants to come back in a couple of weeks and talk about her near-death experience. Fantastic. And I'm delighted to say also the child was simply observed. She had a small kidney tear, settled down, no need for surgery. So essentially, praise God to all of this. Now, I bring this as an encouragement because we all need encouragements, don't we? But also humbly to show you that absolutely we're not in control of our lives. And I've headed this talk today, God is in control. I've mentioned previously that the last bad accident I've come across of a good friend of mine, the pastor in Kenya, didn't survive. And the Lord took him home. It's still a good result. Of course, he's in eternal safety, and I'm delighted that his son is able to carry on the good work. My friend David's work was done, but in all honesty, I'm still pretty gutted, as we both are with Steve Legg, who didn't survive the cancer that he had, that, we won't be able to see each other and work together on this earth. I've lost a friend, but I do know that he's in the best, capital B, the best hands possible. So that's two things that have happened recently. This week, my family has also had some very bad news. One of Heather's cousins, out of the blue, is terminally ill with cancer. No one had any clue. It's started in the gallbladder, spread everywhere. Gallbladder is a terrible place to get a cancer. And he's not a believer, so he's in the awful position of a stunningly awful diagnosis and a short prognosis. And doing so in the absence of faith that can not only save him, but provide him with much needed comfort for both him and his family. My prayer obviously is for healing, but especially that he comes to know Jesus before it's too late. And what I want to bring really tonight is that, these three stories of Sadat, who's our lovely Ugandan lady, David Koreto, my Kenyan pastor, and this Heather's cousin, just illustrate how absolutely we are not in control of our lives. Not one of the three people mentioned knew what was coming. Accidents, by definition, are random, at least to us, whilst cancer is a thief that strikes, again, seemingly randomly, of course, but not randomly to God. And the Bible tells us that he's Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and that this is the great thing, and that he knows our end from our beginning. All our days are known by him, numbered by him. And the Bible tells us, and this is I came across recently, it was a reminder, it says, teach us to number our days. In other words, God has numbered our days, but we need to realize that our days are numbered. We are mortal. Our days are finite. We're like flowers and grass that the Bible tells us will flourish and bloom and then quickly fade. So really, just to bring to your program tonight, a bit of a salutary tales, really, that, just as God sends the sun and the rain on the righteous and the unrighteous, the unexpected strikes both believers and non-believers alike. What matters, and here's the great point of difference, is how we respond to the challenges we face. And I would argue, and I think we've talked about this before, Andy, on your program, that get our responses in early, before disaster strikes, whether it's health disaster, financial disaster, relationship disaster. Get your number one relationship, and that is with God, right first, because he's the master. And then we can give testimony like our Ugandan lady did in church just this Sunday gone, like David Koreto, my Kenyan pastor's family, have done repeatedly in the face of awful pain back at home. Like the wise man that Jesus taught, who built his house on the rock of faith, because we know that storms will come and we need to know where our house is built. So I just wanted to bring something that, from my own personal experience. These are 3 cases known to me, and all the listeners will have people known to them, accidents, cancer, other things, terrible things happening. And just a reminder to us, how is our relationship with God? Because only he's in control.
It's absolutely true. I know I've said this before, but it seems pertinent with this one. I remember being rushed to in an ambulance from my doctor's surgery. I felt my heart wasn't beating correctly. Turns out I had pretty severe episode of atrial fibrillation. So my GP said, please lie down, don't move, ambulance is on the way. Blue lighted into hospital, where I was for quite considerable time in the inner sanctum of A&E. I've had that twice, although once by ambulance, second we just turned up. And the thing is, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't plan it. I didn't expect it. The hospital was very clear. You can't prepare for these single one-off random events. It can happen to anybody. In fact, there was a male nurse there who said, I was on this chair a month ago with exactly what you've got. He's a marathon runner.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Mega fit, way fitter than I was. And that's the point. It can strike you. And we don't know tomorrow what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in an hour's time. I mean, we get a better grasp of it. It's like the weather forecast, isn't it? Yeah, it's probably going to be sunny, but it's not.
Well, I was just watching the local news on the TV before coming on chatting to you tonight, and they talked about Tom Lockyer, footballer, capital of Luton Town, who collapsed on the pitch last year and needed defib. That, of course, is the end of his career, but fortunately it wasn't the end of his life. And the programme was there, him meeting on the pitch the 7 or 8 paramedics and the doctor and the physio that saved his life. And he was, obviously giving everyone a massive hug and calling them all his heroes. But he had no idea, when he walked through those gates at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that about whatever it was, 3:40, he'd be on his back in big trouble.
The thing is, I guess medically, there are certain things that we can know about and certain things that we can't. There are certain things that perhaps we get an inkling of as human beings. We can know that, my right knee starting to hurt. So we can get an indicator from the pain or the discomfort or the stiffness that something isn't right. And then, maybe you need to go and see a doctor and think, well, what is it? Have I fallen down recently? Have I actually been sleeping funny overnight? And there's all these different reasons as to why, whatever the symptom is, that we might have it. I don't have a sore right knee, just to say. But this is the thing. We don't know, but sometimes there's an inkling. And the thing is about life and death is we can know with some certainty when a cancer doctor comes along and says, right, you've probably got 6 to 12 months to live. We know it's a wild guess based on perhaps a lot of information, a lot of experience, but it's a guess. They don't know. We know that a baby should be born at 9 months, 40 weeks in France, slightly different. So a British doctor and a French doctor will have a slightly different due date for a child, give or take a week. And that's the thing. We don't know the future, even when we think we do. And that's why it is rather sensible to have a knowledge of what happens if your life suddenly expires.
Absolutely. I always remember the funny, it's a bit of an odd thing to say really, but the New Zealand All Blacks, the rugby team, were always told to get their retaliation in first, which is a strange way of putting it. In other words, before someone clonks you, you clonk them. Now, why am I bringing this up on a Christian show? Well, it's because I think what I've learned from that, and it's always stuck in my mind, maybe because I like sport, but get your faith in first. Get your relationship with God right first, because life will knock you like an All Black trying to knock you over on the rugby pitch. Life will knock you, and get your relationship with God right first, because the God is stronger than any All Black, than any obstacle that we'll ever face.
I know I've shared this one as well, but I remember saying to my boys many times, if they're saying sorry to somebody for something, which thankfully they're really good lads, but I would say, look, you can say sorry to me, That's great. And yes, you probably should, or go and say sorry to your brother or whatever. But you need to say sorry to God first. It's far more important. I'd rather you put yourself right with God and then come and see me afterwards or whatever. It's fairly rare, but it's not. It's not the point. But I would always say, go and get yourself right with God first, because that's the one relationship that actually matters the most.
Absolutely, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing about her near-death experience, because I wrote a little article on near-death experiences, which are relatively common when people are in that zone, either getting a picture of heaven or hell or both. And I've been interested to see what she comes up with as a strong believer, whose faith I think will be even stronger now than it was 2.5 weeks ago before the accident. But I'll be interested to hear what she says, because it's such a pointer that at the end of this time on Earth, actually it's not the end, and God gives near death NDEs, or near death experiences, to people as a warning. Sometimes, and I remember reading about some man who was leading a pretty awful life, really, when he had his heart attack in his 60s, and he had a picture of hell. Boy, did that shake him up. Changed everything. He was in church, like, he had to kick him out.
Mhm.
And he said he could actually look up in church and see angels at the top of, just underneath the eaves. He could see things that other people couldn't, and he was so aware of eternity. And yeah, it's just a reminder that this world isn't all there is.
It's very easy, as I'm listening to you thinking, I agree with everything you're saying. It's very easy for me also to listen and think, yeah, but that didn't really happen. That's the first thing my brain wants to go to. Yeah, but they didn't really have that experience. So I was chatting with somebody in the week from Operation Mobilization, and it was an interview because they're not part of that, but they were at a Teen Street camp. And we were talking about how do you hear God and get on with your life and all that. And she talked about how she'd had an audible voice from God. And she sort of went to great lengths to talk about what that was like. And I shared with her later that I've had the same thing a few times. Actually, I've heard God's voice audibly. And we have the same experience, which is fascinating. Whenever she shared what God said to her, or I've done the same, the first reaction has never been, what did he say? It's always, what did he sound like? Because we immediately want to compartmentalize, right, he's a Frenchman, he's a Spanish man, he's this, he's that. But we miss the message, and the message is the most important part.
No, do you know, that's very interesting, because I've heard God speak twice, I would say, very clearly, and other than just prompts in my mind, which happen a lot. But the time I heard him audibly, I can't remember what he said, except the voice was like honey. It's absolutely the sweetest honey I'd ever experienced. And the second time was just a strong nudge to me to saying, get out of bed, you need to preach. And I'd had a journey to go, and I was going to miss my preach because I was in bed. It was just, get out of bed now. And I looked around, there was no one around the room. Oh my goodness, that's God speaking to me. Up I went and just got there in time. But when I actually heard his voice, rather than just a strong prompt, it was like honey. Really, really extraordinary.
But this is the reason why I was sharing that, is the message of who God is. You can read the Bible, you can memorize scripture, and that's great, by the way, if you can do that. I always fail to do that. I just accept that I'm not really going to memorize the Bible anytime soon. I'm okay with that. But understanding what the Bible is important. But actually understanding who God is so much more important than knowing any piece of scripture, as good as that can be. And let me redefine that. It's good to know scripture, but knowing God's heart, it's much more important. And I'm so encouraged by when Jesus was on the cross, there was a man to his right, man to his left. And the man that went to heaven, I love this, he wasn't baptized. He didn't sign membership. He didn't do communion. He didn't go to Bible classes. He didn't pray. He just said, basically, my paraphrase would be, I trust you.
Yeah. I'm in.
Yeah. And that's it. But that's the thing. It's not complicated. So I guess I will speak for Richard for a moment. Please don't wait until you think your life is over before making a difference. And here's the reason.
Completely it.
When you're walking with God and you become a Christian, it isn't just that life gets better when you die. Yes, we believe it will. It also means, and this is something I'm going to be honest, I missed out on this for years. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I missed this point for years. That life now, I'm living and breathing on planet Earth, life now also is better with God. There's difficulties, but actually it isn't just about when you die. It's about experiencing the peace of God in this life as well.
No, totally. I mean, that's that whole business of, it's not just pie in the sky when you die, but steak on the plate while you wait, isn't it? As someone once phrased it. But it's true. And I can say that because having become a Christian at 14, I walked away at 18. And at 26, so 8 years later, my life is an absolute mess. And when I came back to faith, it changed everything. Yes, there were some problems still to overcome, and I've had one or two problems since, like bowel cancer. But it's just your take on the world is very different. You are a different person. You literally are a new creation. And life, I always say to my patients, life with God is so much better than life without Him. So, I can't recommend faith strongly enough.
No, and I think we put a lot of pressure on what that should mean. So heart surgery last July, I know we've spoken about that quite a lot, but I got so frustrated and annoyed at myself that I wasn't sufficiently peaceful as much as I should have been. And the thing is about the word should, it piles guilt on us and it robs us of the joy of today. And I found myself lying on the hospital bed thinking, there's guys in this ward who seem to be far more peaceful than me. I know God. I know where I'm going to go when I die. If I die today, I know where I'm going to be. My family will be fine because God will care for them. And yet I still struggle with anxiety and worry and panic and very high blood pressure because I was freaking out being in a hospital about to have a surgeon stick something inside my heart whilst awake. All of that, that's okay. Because what does God say? Not do not be anxious, but do not be anxious. However, when you are anxious, it's the most wonderful words for me ever to read. It's like, you don't need to be anxious. It's fine. But when you are, here's what you can do.
What you can do. Yes. And, it's always put your trust in me. Yeah. And, don't just let the sort of thoughts swirl around like a sort of unhelpful vortex in your head. Give them to God.
We can't know tomorrow. And there's a beautiful bit of scripture in the New Testament. I don't remember where it is. I think it's maybe 1 Peter, but it talks about, and I say this a lot, you don't go to this city and say, I'm going to go to this city tomorrow and I'm going to do business over here and do that, because you don't even know what's going to happen in the morning. And I think that is so true. And the story you said at the start, we don't know. Don't go through life morbid and afraid and terrified. That's not living. What does the Bible say? He wants to give us life to the full, life to the max.
Absolutely. Life to the max. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's true. Was I reading something earlier about good business isn't just about making good decisions, but about courage to try. And I think that if we could apply that to our lives.
Good. It's having the courage to be a Christian and say, actually, it takes courage to say, I'm not in control. And I think, often weak people desperate to remain in control. Once you realize you're not, it's very liberating. And actually, but it takes a bit of courage to say, actually, it's not about me. It's about God. But when you do so, when you pluck up courage to do so, then it changes everything. And one can go about life not doing nothing. He's got plenty for us to do, but just realizing we are not in control.
Yeah. Which is true. We're living in a world where there's fear around us, and the certain fact that when I die, I'm going to go to heaven and be with Jesus Christ. That carries me through some scary moments, like heart surgery last year. I'm sure you had some similar issues when you had bowel cancer and you had to go through or navigate all of that stuff. There are terrifying moments that are going to happen because you know what? It hurts. Needles hurt. It's not a scratch. I don't care what a doctor or nurse says. It is not a slight scratch when you have a needle. But do you know what? There's someone who can help you through that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I hope that we've encouraged somebody listening today.
I hope so.
But yeah, absolutely. Just realize that we're not in control and pass it to God.
And my standard advice, which I always give, if you are listening to this and thinking, maybe I should do something, go and find a church that's open every single Sunday morning. Not sometimes, go to one that's open every single Sunday morning. Go and walk in there and say, I heard this chap on the radio talking. Could you tell me what it means to live my life that's better? How does God fit into my life? But find a church that's open every week, not just sometimes. Richard, thank you. We'll have more of this next week. It's good.
My pleasure, Andy.